All right. Taylor, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself to the people on the panel and the people that are listening to it right now?
Absolutely. So my name is Taylor, and I am active duty Army and I guess almost full-time real estate investor soon, transitioning out in about 6 months. And I am ready to kind of be a full-time real estate entrepreneur, man.
Nice, nice. Okay, before we even get into the whole real estate part, right? What was your beginnings like? Like, how did you always grow up like financially like savvy, or did you grow up like, hey, yeah, you gotta join the military? Like, what was all that about? Like up until 18.
Yeah, so I come from the most, normal, humble beginnings. My dad worked in the government service for about 30 years, so I didn't know anything about anything, man. I was just, just a normal kid growing up. And luckily, I just studied hard and did some work. So I got into West Point. So I graduated from West Point back in 2018. And it was an active duty Army officer stationed at Fort Bragg in the 82nd Airborne, doing the whole, paratrooper thing. And at Bragg is kind of when I found real estate in my spare time. And then it's kind of taken over my life from there.
Nice. And before when you were 18, since we got like a lot of people that are either starting out or they're just graduating high school and they're like, hey, I need to figure out my life, right? What were you thinking at 18? Like, were you thinking, hey, I got to go to college? I got to go to the military. What was your thought process and everything?
Yeah, when I was 18, man, I was super hyper focused on getting into the academy. So I wanted both service, and I also wanted to get my college education and get that paid for as well. I didn't have a plan, or I didn't have a fund to get me through college. So I really was relying on the military to get me through. So if I didn't get into West Point, I would have done ROTC, but I really wanted to do both, man. Service has been something that I've always wanted to do. And I felt, really grateful to be in this country, to be in America. When my ancestors came over here, we didn't have anything. And as our generations stayed here and we were raised in America, like we've been able to build something for ourselves here and
Yeah,
call this place home. So I'm truly grateful for everything that America's given to our family. So
nice. And
serving was always something I was going to do.
what caused you that process? Like, hey, yeah, I want to join the military. Was it someone like a family member that joined already, or what was it beforehand?
I don't really come from too much military background. I think both my grandfathers were in the service back in the day. I think my grandpa was like a cook or something, nothing crazy.
Yeah,
but it was just something that we always wanted to do. I think my father, when he raised us, he just raised us to be patriots. Like we were always just patriots, man. I've always loved America,
yeah.
and service was just a part of it. And I never had any doubt I would serve one day. So that's how I kind of ended up there. But we don't really come from too much military background.
God, I wish I had the same answer as you, but I would just say David. I would say I just joined because of David Goggins. That's what I always say. And how did you get into West Point? And can you like tell the people what the process is into getting into West Point?
Yeah, so it is kind of a pain in the butt, but it's a long process, man. It's like you kind of almost have to plan it out from by the time you're a freshman in high school. I feel like if you want to be competitive. So, they're looking for a well-rounded candidate. They're looking for somebody with good grades, probably some varsity letter sports, good SATs. And I don't know if kids still do SATs.
They still do,
I
yeah.
feel old. Yeah. So, good SAT, good ACT scores. You take a candidate fitness assessment. So it's kind of like their version of like ACFT, and they complete that. And then you also do of course, like any college, your essays,
Yeah.
you do your interviews. And then the biggest piece is you have to go and get a nomination. And so for me, you have to go to your congressman or your senator, interview with them, and try to get a nomination through them, because they appoint somebody from every congressional district in the United States. So there's representation from all over the country there. So that was an interesting piece that people don't know about, is you actually got to get appointed by your
Congressman.
congressman,
Yeah.
senator, something like that. So once you throw all that together into this big portal, they pick it's like 1,000 people per class. So it's kind of like you gotta be talented or smart, but you also got to get a little lucky, I think. And so I
Yeah.
think I got a little lucky.
Nice. And how was your time in West Point? Because I hear like stories like you're forced to go to the games, and every time someone scores, you got to do some push-ups. I heard stories. All right.
Yeah, it's honestly such a unique place. It's almost like a little cult. but it was a good experience overall. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it again, but I appreciate my time there. There's like a phrase that I hear a lot of grads say. It's like you appreciate that you came from there, but you're not like super stoked to be there while you're there. But you're happy on the back end,
Yeah, you're happy afterwards, after everything.
Yeah,
And
once you got the degree.
yeah, then you went to Bragg, right? And
Yep.
your time in Bragg, what caused you to have that entrepreneurial mindset? Like what shifted?
Once I got to Bragg is when I had a little bit of time, because when I was at West Point, that I wasn't super super smart where I could just not study and get through. I had to like focus on it. But when I got to Bragg, I had a little bit of time to kind of think about, you know, who I am and what I want to do. What's my future going to look like? What is my ideal outcome in life? What does that look like? And so it kind of pointed towards entrepreneurship. And so I always thought being my own boss would be something that would be just awesome. Since high school, I'm sure a lot of us here, it's always been military regimented, like boom, 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 you do this, everything at
Yeah,
a certain time and you go by the manual. But the idea of kind of, taking flight on my own wing
yeah,
and being my own boss sounded really cool to me. And also I wanted to build some wealth, have move up the socioeconomic ladder, live out my own American dream. We've served our country, we've sacrificed, and now, I want to live the American dream too.
yeah.
So when I did when I dug into that, did a lot of research, man, a lot of soul searching, and I was looking at a lot of different things. Like, do I start an app? Am I going to be a tech bro? Am I going to be a investment banker or something? But what it ended up really pointing down to, um, after I was just doing a lot of soul searching, was real estate. It seemed like the easiest way for your average, middle class American to attain wealth, to build generational wealth relatively quickly. So I went all in. I put all my chips on the table.
Nice.
Once I kind of did my due diligence and decided that real estate was going to be it. Um, yeah, I went all in on it.
Nice. And what was your first deal like? I bet it was scary too. Like, oh shit, I'm actually finally getting into this. What was that? What was it? What was that? What was that like?
So actually, my very, very first property was super easy by the book. It was just a VA loan house hack, which
Yeah.
I always recommend to every vet to start off that way, unless you got maybe like a whole family and kids and it's a little harder to share rooms or buy a duplex or something. But I started off with literally just when I got back from a deployment, came in and bought my house in Fayetteville with a VA loan, zero down. And back then the market wasn't so crazy, so I actually had the seller fix a bunch of things and cover all
Yeah.
my closing costs. So I actually moved into a property, got paid like $200. Literally got a check for $200. Moved into this property, zero down, and I immediately just fixed it up real quick. Took me about a month, and the property was I bought it for like $95,000.
Okay.
But it was a decent 3-2 in a renter neighborhood. So the mortgage was like 550, and I rented out my bedroom to another soldier, which I think the market rents were at that time were like $600. So from just renting out my bedroom, I was living for free and pocketing all that
Wow.
BAH.
Nice.
So that's how I got my first start, and that's when I got my first taste. And I was like, oh man, like this is pretty nice, dude. So so I saved up pretty much everything I had, and I had like a career starter loan. So I had about 30 G's, like 30-40 grand saved up, and I'm like, I'm gonna do my first BRRRR deal. And BRRRR is an acronym for those that don't know, is the buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. So I bought a courthouse auction from the Cumberland County Courthouse, and it was about $94,000, mostly cosmetic renovation with some minor fixes I had to go in there and do. So I think I put like $25,000 into this property. So I was all in for under 120. When I went to do my cash out refinance on the back end, it appraised for like 170. So I got a
Wow.
loan out for 127 and some change. And essentially, I got that in cash. So I paid off that first position, basically recycled my entire investment, back into my account to do more deals. So it's it was my first taste of like an infinite return on investment. I don't know of any other thing out there that can give you an infinite return, a stock or a cool NFT, but this was my first taste of an infinite investment. So I was pumped up. And I think that property right now I still own it. It's renting for like, I think like 16 or something like that. The mortgage is like 950 or something like that. So there's decent cash flow there too. And I try to buy some decent properties because I like to rent to military families if I can.
Yeah. And can you explain the process of doing a courthouse auction, especially in Cumberland County that you were at?
Yeah, so every state, every county does things a little differently. So, but Cumberland County specifically, they're in-person auctions. So you go down to the courthouse in Cumberland County, and they'll have like a list. They'll have all the bids on the wall or on a table or something like that. And then you can write down each one, and then you can kind of see where they're at. So what you can do is you submit a bid on it, and it's like you put a deposit down. It's like 5% or something like that. It's been
Yeah.
a while since I've done one, but it was like you put your bid in and you put 5% down, and then your bid's in. And then people have like, I think it's 7 or 5 business days to upset you. And if they don't upset you, then you win the bid. And so at that point you owe the cash, but you could also put in like you do something like what I did. You put in an extension, and then you go get your hard money loan, and you can go close on it.
Got you.
So, but if somebody upsets you, then it just keeps going back and forth until somebody eventually
Yeah.
wins the bid. And so I like it like that though, because like in Florida, so my main market now is Florida.
Yeah.
In Florida, all the auctions are done online, which I don't like
Yeah.
because that increases competition. Anybody
Yeah.
in the country can bid on that. So I do like how backwards Cumberland County is, because even though they're behind the times, it gives local investors that advantage.
Yeah. And do you only aim for single families, or what is your basically buy box, or what is your goal with real estate?
So I started off single family. I bought a lot of single family. I still buy single family, but now I'm looking for more small mom and pop apartment complexes. Anything from like 5 to 24 units is what I've really been looking for. But I'll still buy single family when a deal comes up. I can't say no to a deal, so I just
Yeah.
end up buying it. But I have been focusing on that kind of niche, is those mom and pop, because usually like they're a mom and pop owner, maybe they're mismanaging it, or maybe they're growing older and they're looking to offload. So I like those sellers and kind of targeting those
Gotcha.
specific people.
Gotcha. And for those that are like either, we have a lot of military people listening to this too, especially the enlisted side. Let's say they're an E4 and below, right? They're living in the barracks, or they're doing, they have access to the VA loan, but they don't get any BAH, right? What would you recommend for those type of soldiers that want to get into real estate, but they are living in those scenarios?
And the bees, baby.
Yeah.
Hopefully they made the barracks a little nicer at Bragg since I left. But I would say start off by doing your education, man. Like education up front. I did a ton of reading, ton of podcasts, even took a course before I pulled the trigger. So I would start off definitely educating yourself and getting ready. And
Yeah.
the first thing I tell my soldiers is you gotta get your finances straight. Like, don't buy a Hellcat, for that 29% interest. Like, don't go get a loan shark. Don't marry the first person you see in Fayetteville, whatever. Like, get your money right, get your finances right. And as a soldier, especially as a junior enlisted, you guys have a unique opportunity to save so much money. Like, if you guys wanted to, really, you don't need to spend any money. Maybe like internet, cell phone, but you could eat at the DFAC, your housing's covered. And so most of your paycheck, if you wanted to, you could like save a considerable amount actually.
Yeah,
And so I would start saving, and then when you do have a bit of money to do your first deal, then I would jump in. Or you can search for a partner too, or a mentor. Um, but yeah, I would say number one, get those finances straight and get a good savings plan up, and then train your mind. Adopt that mentality of being like a lifelong student. It doesn't stop in the classroom when you leave high school or college or whatever. Like, try to learn something new every day.
gotcha. And what makes you, I guess, what is your superpower in a way? A superpower in a way, like what makes you that real estate investor that's different from any other investor? What do you do differently?
Yeah, I'd like to think that my superpower is my story, like the way I can connect with people. That's where I have found the most success, doing buying off market deals, doing creative finance deals. Um, I have that ability that I can connect with those homeowners, and provide them a solution, and sell them on me. I'm not somebody that wants to go in there and be super just transactional, like give me a price, give me a number.
Yeah,
Um, I like to go in there and say, how can I serve you? How can I provide a solution for you?
yeah,
And then tell them about me too. I'm Taylor. You know, I'm I'm your neighbor. Like, I live in Fayetteville. I love Fayetteville. Um, I would love to buy your house and make it beautiful again. Make the community better.
yeah.
Um, make everybody thrive. Everybody wins. So I think my superpower is just my story and the way I can connect with people.
Yeah. When you said great again, I was just thinking about Trump, like, make Fayetteville great again.
Yeah, I got to make that
Yes.
happen.
And what is the biggest like problem that you face while doing like your real estate journey?
You said the biggest problem.
Yeah.
You know, I would say I'm just I wouldn't say it's a problem necessarily, but I'm always like facing my own limitations, my own doubts. With everything that I do, that's probably the hardest thing to overcome. When I did my first deal and I put my entire savings into that, I was like, oh shit,
Hmm.
hopefully this works out. I've never done this before. And so you almost have to, um, it's almost like maybe you have like an imposter syndrome. Like,
Yeah.
who do you think you are trying to do this? And so it's almost constantly battling those self doubts, self limitations with everything you do. So like now, like this year, we closed our first commercial deal, and I'm thinking the same thing. Like, what am I doing buying like a $1 million deal? Like, holy
Yeah.
cow, I'm just a army guy. Um, and then now as we're expanding, and I'm trying to build more of an online presence, become kind of like a person in the real estate space, like known in the space. It's like, am I legit enough? Do people care about what I have to say?
Yeah.
So I think it's always battling that, man. But that's just growth. I think that's just part of growth. Like,
Yeah.
you're always going to grow, and you're gonna grow into new identities. So
And like from like what made you do commercial since you've been doing residential, we'll switch over to commercial.
well, it was commercial residential. It's an apartment
Okay.
building. But anything on 1 to 4 units is considered residential.
Yeah.
Anything 5 and greater is considered commercial. So
Yeah.
that's what I meant. I did my very first commercial one just this year.
Yeah.
So
What's the story behind that one?
yeah, that's another great example of utilizing relationship marketing,
Yeah.
selling myself, and utilizing creative finance. So typically, my stories start out, I walk my dog or whatever, I drive my neighborhoods. I'm a local guy. I like to be involved in the community, and I'm looking at properties, and I'm looking for a small mom and pop building. So I write down some addresses and I skip trace those, give those people a call. And I gave this particular gentleman a call, and he just happens to own like a lot of units here, like, I don't know, like 300 units or something crazy. But
Yeah.
really cool guy. A little bit older, and like probably 40s, 50s, but really cool guy. And he really liked my story too, like who I was. I told him, I'm Taylor. I'm an active duty Army guy. I'm just looking to buy a couple of properties for our family, build a little generational wealth. just, change the course of our family's financial future, man. And so I was able to kind of build that connection with him because he could have sold his property. He was considering just listing it. He already talked to some agents. But then I just happened to connect with him just at the right time.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of luck too, but he heard me out. We connected pretty well, and I told him why I wanted to buy his property. And so he was willing to work with me because I told him, like, I'm not a big institutional buyer. I'm not a hedge fund. I'm not a guy that has just, because it was like almost $1 million purchase price. So I was like, I don't have like a 200, $300,000 to put down.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if you're willing to work with me because something like this changes people's lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he worked with me. So he was able to we created a seller note to cover the entire down payment. I went out and got a commercial loan through and he introduced me to the local banker too. So now I have a really good connection with this local banker, and I have a good relationship with that bank. So I got that loan that he introduced me to, and he wrote a note for almost the entire down payment for that property too. So I came in with literally little to no down on this, almost $1 million deal, just because of the way I presented myself, I think, and the way I was able to connect with him. So a lot of doors open up if you're just willing to be a real person, I
Yeah.
think, and then talk to people.
I think honesty and sharing a good story always gets to people, right? They're like, oh man, it warms their heart. And then they're like, you know what? I could probably do business with you. And I've
Yeah.
seen that work for me, and I've seen that work for a lot of people just like yourself. And did you have like a mentor doing all this? Or was it like, oh, just podcasts, courses, and books helped me out the most?
Yeah, I had a lot of people in my network that I
Yeah.
was able to lean on, leverage for resources or for advice. So um, I definitely recommend to anyone, like, if you're gonna be a real estate investor, or if you want to be a master of whatever your craft is, like, you should try to connect with people that are maybe one step higher than you, or at that next level that you're trying to be. And that's a circle you need to surround yourself with. So yeah, I just happened to connect with a lot of people that were in that next level that I wanted to be. And I think by just being able to have that access to them and asking them questions, I think that's what helped accelerate my growth for sure.
Nice. And do you have like a team that's all set up right now? Or like do you have virtual assistants? Do you have people that are boots on the ground right now?
Yep. So I still buy a property here and there in Fayetteville, but kind of like I said before, my focus is to have shift down towards Florida. So down in Florida, I'm actively building out entire business down there. So, I have our web developers that are building out our website, doing our SEO, PPC. I have virtual assistants that are doing the text blasting or cold calling and stuff. And so there's systems that we've put in place now. And so luckily now, instead of me, when I started off, I was just that, you know, brand new army guy that was just driving around doing everything myself, driving for dollars, skip tracing myself, cold calling myself. I did it all. But now we just have systems in place that, you know, our team members will pretty much qualify the leads and I can just close.
Nice, nice. Okay, okay. And typically whenever you're finding off-market deals, uh, is there something that basically helps you decide, oh yeah, this is gonna help, this is gonna be a good deal, or like, what decides like what is your buy box looking like? Okay, this it has to be making this much cash flow, or are you trying to flip it first, or do you need to do a burr?
So for me, out of all my markets, buy boxes are a little bit different, but overall, my entire strategy for my whole portfolio is like, I need to get into deals with little or no down. So I need to structure them a little bit creatively because I don't like to sink too much cash into a single deal and then it's stuck there. The way I've been able to scale so quickly is by using that strategies, using leverage, structuring the deal so that I can come into with little or no down, or doing a burr where I can just recycle everything. So pretty much my buy box nationwide is going to be something that I can recycle my funds out entirely or get into the deal with very, very little down.
Nice. And what would you tell those people that say, hey, it's much harder now to buy real estate. Back then you could have bought real estate for raisins if you wanted to. What's your opinion on those, on what people say about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The market is shifting, or has shifted
Yeah.
pretty rapidly. The Fed's raised rates faster than they've ever done before. But I think a good investor knows how to make money and do deals in any market,
Yeah.
or else I don't think they're that good. So it's just a matter of constantly adapting and overcoming. So for this market that we're already in, but I think we're gonna probably head further into that direction, interest rates are going to be high. The market's slowing down. I wouldn't say it's a complete buyer's market, but I would not say it's quite a seller's market either. I don't know if there's a term that's in between where there's like equal power or
Yeah.
something, but
The trenches. Everybody's on one
yeah,
side.
yeah, the trenches, man. So, yeah, we're in the trenches. So, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for buyers now that, because before, especially in some hotter markets, people were bidding like 20, 50, 100K over asking and getting outbid. So now people are going to be able to come to the table and get a reasonable price for a property. I mean, they're going to pay a higher interest rate, but the way I see it is, down the road, you can probably refinance that.
Yeah.
And for your creative buyers, your savvy investors, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, I think, because especially in the creative finance realm, a lot of people are probably not going to be buying. And if you can leverage creative finance, then you can go in there, arrange these great deals with people that are getting lowballed by wholesalers or can't sell their house on the MLS, whatever the reason is. But if you can come in there, provide a creative solution, I think you might have the opportunity to pick up a lot of really great deals coming into the next year.
Nice. And what's the biggest fear decision that you made that paid the biggest outcome?
Like the biggest ROI on any deal that I've done?
Or not ROI, but the biggest ROI on the decision that you made. It could have been like, oh, join the military, or it could have been like any decision that you said yes to.
Yeah, I think going to West Point was getting in there was definitely a big win for me. Like I said, I don't really come from like a crazy background or nothing like that. I don't know anybody that went to West Point. I just thought of it. I was like, dude, I'm gonna do this. And so
One day, just came to your head.
Yeah, let's get it. So getting into West Point was a big win for me because I got to go to a prestigious school and I was able to actually afford it. Like,
yeah,
because that was the biggest thing, was like I said, I didn't have a way to pay for college either. So the fact that I got my education paid for was huge. And plus, even like enlisting in the Army, I know it has its fair shares of like stuff you got to deal with, but I think it's still worth it because on the back end, you leave with your VA loan, you leave with your GI Bill, and plus, if you have any disability or something on the back end too, like all that adds up. Like, so I think vets are like, there's some really good opportunities for vets. Like
yeah.
if you just do your minimum enlistment or whatever. So I think even though it's a love and hate relationship, I think overall the service was definitely worth it. Set me up, and plus I love my network. I love my community. I love vets. I love connecting with anybody else that's in the kind of general military community too. It's a great community to be a part of. So yeah,
Nice.
I love it. I love it.
And I'm going to ask you some deep questions here right now. What
Let's do
do
it.
you think the greatest accomplishment in your life is so far?
That's a good one. Let me ponder. Greatest accomplishment. You know, I don't know if it sounds cliche or not, but I think it was like, man, sometimes, especially, some days at my younger days, maybe I wasn't the most happy, and I didn't have very much direction. But I kind of came to a realization one day that, like, nobody's going to save you. Nobody's going to throw you a lifeline. Like, you can't really have this victim mentality. So, and happiness is a choice. So I pulled myself out of my own rut, and like literally took like control. I decided to take control of my own life, I guess is the way I want to word it.
Yeah.
So even though I didn't really accomplish much on paper, that day that I decided that I'm not going to have this victim mindset
Yep.
and I'm going to take control of my own life was the day I changed like all my shit around.
Yeah.
And from then on, I've just been accomplishing a lot more. And since I've done that, I've been a lot more happy too, a lot more fulfilled, a lot more successful. So, yeah, I would just say, man, no one's, you know, you're the only person that's going to save yourself. Like,
Yeah.
so the day I figured that out, man, it's paid off dividends for me. And I don't even really know what caused it. You know,
Yeah.
one day it just clicked for me. Like, dude, I got to change my life.
Man, I love that. That reminds me of Viktor Frankl, where do you know who that is?
No, I haven't
No,
heard of that one.
it's a book that a lot of people say about victim mindset, about how this guy, he wrote a book about man's search for meaning, right? And it's him as he literally lived through the Holocaust. He saw his family get burned, his
Damn.
wife, his daughter, I think he had a daughter, and he he had like those lucky saves, right? So like they'll get a group of 18 guys and then they'll shoot them all, and then he's the only one that's left, right? And he's like, holy crap, like because the gun got jammed, right? And he's like, what's going on, right? It's like you could have died, you should have died, all that stuff. And then he's like, he even stated like the people that hoped that they're gonna get out by Christmas are the ones that died the fastest, right? And basically people take his story and he says the reason why he lived through all that because he had a purpose. He believed he had a purpose in life to do something, right? He's like, I'm gonna take control, right? Even though I can't, change my environment right now, I do know in the future it's gonna change. So I might as well tell my story when I get out of here and live my life afterwards. So a lot of people take his case like, if this guy, you know, he was a Holocaust survivor. He was like starved to death. He was, survived many occasions, saw his family get burned. Like the difficulties that this person went through is not complaining, does not have the victim mindset that can live through life. What causes you to have that mindset where you're like, oh, there's no Wi-Fi today. I gotta complain, right? I'm like, what? Right?
Yeah.
So people just reflect back to him. So if you have time one day and you want to listen to an audiobook, listen to a Man Search for Meaning. That's a pretty good
Yeah, that sounds
philosophical book.
powerful, man.
It is.
That's a good rec.
And did you ever have like an event in your life that was probably like the hardest and you kind of learned like the biggest lesson out of it?
You know, I think that's kind of ties into that last question. I might have answered both of those with
Yeah.
one. Um, but yeah, maybe I just, like you said, I had that victim mindset. I think I was still at Bragg, and I didn't really have anyone at the time. And the girlfriend I had for a long time, she left me too. And
Yeah.
I was like, dude, why am I so unhappy? Like, why does life kind of suck? And then just saying, stop feeling sorry. After I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and decided to take control, man. That's when everything changed for me.
Nice. Nice. I always heard like someone told me about this. Like the three things that will change your life is one, a family member dying, two is a divorce or a breakup, and three, buying, selling your first property. So those those are one of the things that
Yeah,
like one of those three will change up your life.
that's what's
And
up.
uh do you have an opinion that you have that a lot of people will disagree on?
You know, um, something that somebody would disagree on. Let me think about that one too. I think, well, I don't know if anybody would disagree, but I, I'm kind of a believer that everything in life happens for a reason,
Yeah.
whether it's good or bad. Like, something really bad can happen in your life. At the end of the day, I still feel like it was meant. I'm a believer in destiny. I'm a believer in fate. And so, people might have draw some unlucky cards, but I still feel like it's I don't know if it's God. I don't know I'm honestly, I don't know what I believe in, but it was meant to happen to you for a reason, to teach you a lesson or to show you something or to
Yeah.
guide you in a different path. So that's kind of something I just believe in, maybe on a spiritual level. But like I said, I don't really know. But
And do you ever have like what's the biggest, I guess, like sacrifice you've made so far?
I think the biggest sacrifice that I've made is just um, I think just my time. Like I am one of those dudes that's just when I get on something, I get hyper laser focused on it. And
Yeah.
so I've sacrificed almost all of my time. I don't have any hobbies. I'm a robot. I eat,
Hey, I
I
can relate.
sleep, I gym. Like so I haven't really had time for myself, honestly. And I kind of feel bad for my wife because I don't really I don't give her that much time either. So
Yeah.
uh I just sacrifice a lot of time right now, man, between like the army, all these different little real estate things I'm trying to do. It's just I sacrifice a lot of time. Plus, in the army, with you, I'm sure you've done some JRTC rotations, some Devil Storms or Panther Storms or whatever brigade you're in, and or going on those deployments. Like you just lose a lot of time, man,
You
away
do.
from family. And to me, I think family is the most important thing
Yeah.
in my life. And so my goal is that I can get everything more established, take myself out of the picture a little bit, and be able to kind of give back to my family, give them their time that they deserve back.
Yeah. And I do see that, like you said, because I see a lot of soldiers and like they're they're getting their time taken from either deploying, going to JRTZ rotations, and it sucks. But you take all your time, and a lot of these soldiers, they don't realize that the real world, right, the civilian world, is moving without them, and they're kind of stuck. Like, hey, everything's okay, everything's cool, and when they get out, they're like, wait a minute, what the heck? Where's everybody? Right? It's like,
That's the truth.
but in their head, they already moved on. They're like, oh, everybody's going to college. Everybody's going to like bigger and better things. Everybody's starting a family while you're out here like, shit, what happened?
I'm in the motor pool still.
Yeah, multiple Mondays. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
still there. And what biggest advice do you have someone for like that's trying to leave the military? Because I know you're 6 months out already, about to be out. Any advice for those like either enlisted or commission for soldiers?
Yeah. So I have probably two things.
Go ahead.
The first thing I would think of is to probably try to find something you're passionate about, something that you enjoy, something that you can see yourself doing, which can be hard. Because I know a lot of guys that join the military, even me, we go in there, um, probably because you didn't know what else to do. Like I joined the military because I didn't have another option. So um, try to find something that you might be passionate about that you think you'd be good at. Like somebody like me, I can talk to people, I can write to people. I'd probably be maybe good in something like sales or something like that.
Yeah.
So find that niche. Number two would be to try to develop some skills. So, which can be hard too, because a lot of military guys, like, your skills just don't directly translate to the civilian world. So you just have to find those skills within your job or that you can develop on your own that you can apply to the real world. So like, I'm an airborne artilleryman. What the hell is an airborne artilleryman going to do in the corporate world? Like nothing.
Yeah.
So like, if you can develop those skills, whether that's going and getting a certification or studying and doing your GMAT so you can get ready for business school, or just taking some courses like me, since I'm more of an entrepreneur track, taking some real estate courses, doing that education. You don't even have to pay for it. You can get a lot of free education on, you be a YouTube degree,
There you
get your
go.
YouTube degree,
YouTube University.
get your, read some books, like just develop your skill set, develop your knowledge,
Yeah.
which just can be hard because I know, a lot of your buddies might be hanging out and, they want to just go out, drink, whatever. And so you got to find a little bit of time at least to invest back into yourself.
Nice. And Pan here says, would you mind sharing your portfolio number how much debt and equity you have right now. How do you minimize the risk when okay, let's just start with do you want to share how much like I guess debt and equity you may have right now?
Yeah, so we have about 31 doors,
Mhm.
and I think it's total about, let me look at my whiteboard. I think I have about 1.5 million in equity, and the rest would be debt. I think the portfolio is around maybe like 5 million or something like that.
Yeah,
So something like that. And those are not exact numbers. Those are like very rounded numbers.
yeah. And what is your he says, what is your final goal, like your end strategy and exit strategy at the end of all things?
Yeah. So I don't even really track like equity. I mean, it's important. They're important metrics. Like I do track my net worth and stuff, but at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna flex my net worth or something like that.
Yeah,
So what I really mostly care about is my cash flow. So I kind of focus a lot on my monthly cash flow because I need a number that says this is how much I can live off of comfortably every month. So this is when I can be done, you know?
yeah,
So um, right now my monthly cash flow goal is 20,000 a month. But I don't think I would stop there. Like I think I would just keep, I don't know, like I honestly don't know. Like
yeah,
do I just keep going and buying properties and flipping forever? Or do I make, I don't know, 100K a month and then I just say I'm done and
yeah.
then like chill out on the beach with a mimosa.
Exactly.
So we'll see what the future holds, man. I feel like I'm pretty hyper focused. I have a 5-year plan at all times. I know what my 5-year plan is and I know what I needed to do this year to get towards there. But long-term goal, you know, I mean, I'm gonna live in Florida. I'd always wanted to live on like a waterfront,
Yeah.
like a cool little pad. So that's always been a goal of mine, is look out on my backyard and see the intercoastal, you know, maybe get a little boat or something. So
Maybe a little hurricane. Yeah.
get a nice insurance policy.
There you go.
So that's my goal though. That's my end state. So we'll see how many properties that ends up being, or how much cash flow it is every month. But I'm gonna probably keep working until I can live a life that,
Yeah.
you know, I want, or that I feel like I deserve. But I feel like I deserve to live a really nice life
Oh yeah.
because that's what I'm creating for myself.
Yeah.
So
You're taking control of the ship. You're like, this
that's
is what
right.
I want. This is what
Yep.
I want. And
Yep.
I do say that passion and purpose changes like than you more often than you think. Because someone that wants to be a doctor now, they change their life over to become a YouTuber, right? Or someone that like right now you're doing investing, right? You're making 20K a month, and uh later on you have your first kid, you're like, oh man, I want to be the best dad ever. Or maybe later on you're like, man, I have grandkids now, I have a family, I have a trust built, right? Why do I need all this money? Right? Let's keep taking vacations. And then you have a young Taylor, a new Taylor come in. It's like, hey, I saw that you had this apartment. Do you mind seller financing? You're like, oh,
Exactly.
I remember I used to do that. Cool, I'll help you out. Right now, the whole boat, it just it comes back. It comes back in
Flavors of
circle.
life. Yep.
Yes, it's all part of it. And
That's right.
what piece of advice would you want to give to a starting out entrepreneur trying to get into real estate?
Yeah, for, you know, a starting entrepreneur, I say the biggest advice is like you got to be prepared to wear like all the hats starting
Yes.
off. Like man, I was just thinking about I'll buy a house, but it quickly evolves in there. Like now, like you're gonna be a bookkeeper, you're gonna be a project manager, you're gonna be an acquisition specialist, you're gonna do, you're gonna be in the trenches, you're gonna be cold calling.
Yes.
Like you got to be kind of like a jack of all trades, and you got to be highly flexible, highly adaptable.
Yeah.
And another thing, probably the most important thing, is you have to have high emotional intelligence, because like being an entrepreneur is not always like calm seas cruising. Yeah, sometimes you hit some rocky waves. Like there's huge ups where you feel like you're on top of the world, and then there's huge downs where like,
Oh yeah.
man, I'm questioning your existence. So you just have to have like a lot of intestinal fortitude to be an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, you gotta put food on your own plate. Like you gotta feed your family. So it's not like at the army, like you're going to get that guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks, but like if you don't perform, no food for you. And
Yes.
so like the stakes
Yeah.
are a lot higher. I mean, it's a glass ceiling though.
Yeah.
So at the same time, you know, you can make as much as you can imagine,
Yeah.
but also on the on the counter, you know,
Yeah.
you might not make nothing. So um, I love it because that's what kind of motivates me. But like I said, you got to have that high emotional intelligence because sometimes you can get it in your own head.
Yes. I call that the level of maturity, right? As you get older, you're gonna say like, hey, I'm an adult now. I can pay my own bills. I don't need dependency. I can now do, like, I see it as in the beginning you're dependent, and then after that you become independent, and later on you become interdependent, right? Uh, doing all that, I see it as like you can't go back, right? You can't go back to becoming independent. You got to put on your big boy pants, your big boy shoes, and actually work and make something grow out of your work. Uh,
Yep.
because you'll see a lot of these people your age, probably Taylor, that are still playing video games, sitting at home, and probably like collecting government checks or something, right? That's like, oh man, hopefully I get something, or maybe they're living with their parents still right now. Like, hopefully something happens. Hopefully the world becomes better so that I can get out there and do something. But they're out here just, I call it mental masturbation, right? They're just having fun in their head. They're like, oh yes, more dopamine, more TikTok, more everything into my head,
Yep.
instead of working and building something like you are right now.
Yeah.
And
And that,
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, and that's the most important piece besides, you know, education. I always stress education, but probably the most important thing after that is the application. A lot of
Yes.
people will absorb knowledge, but they'll never take action themselves. I mean, I don't know, you know, sometimes you get pumped up, you get juiced up, and you hear like a motivational speaker, whatever, and he's jacking you up, teaching you some new like awesome strategies. But like unless you go out there, hit the streets and apply it yourself, like you're never gonna create the life that you want.
100% agree. That paralysis analysis, I've had it. I know a lot of people that had it. Like, man, you know all this, but it's so hard to trigger it. But after your first deal, yo, that shit was easy. Keep doing it over and over again. Let's see how much we can get. And
Exactly.
then it just becomes a video game. Like, I could tell you, like, my all my stuff started just from playing the game GTA. Right. I used to play Grand Theft Auto all the time. Like, I would start a business on there all the time. And then I'm like, why don't I just do it in the real world? Right. Well, it's so different. I'm spending all this time, hours on this game. Why can't I just spend hours on my business in real life? I'm doing it. And I'm like, oh shit. It's basically the same. You're putting the amount of hours, it works. And yeah, it's simple. I just tell people, like, if you're playing video games, like, you'll get tired of it. And then you're like, hey, I gotta go to the real world and actually do something.
Yeah, I
And,
mean, hopefully your business is not like the one in GTA
oh
where
yeah,
you can
yeah.
just
We're not robbing people.
run
We're
up to
not.
somebody's car and just pull them out. Nobody has their car doors locked, pull ripping dudes out of their cars.
And
uh,
what is the biggest mistake that you see a lot of entrepreneurs making?
the biggest mistake that I could see other entrepreneurs making. I think the biggest, and I'm guilty of this too, is that you're so busy working in the business, in the trenches,
Yeah,
that you can't take yourself out of the business and work on the business, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So, you know, sometimes like, especially when you're starting off, you know, you got to wear all the hats, you got to be the operations officer, you got to do all that stuff. But you also have to pull yourself out into like almost like a third person looking down your business and thinking like, all right, you know, how can I optimize and change this or hire this person, do this function. So I think a lot of guys that they'll get like stuck in the business and then just so focused on running the operations of it
yeah.
that they're not able to pull themselves out and actually look at their business and optimize it and grow it. So I'm guilty of it too. Because you know, well, I guess in the army, you know, I'll buy about like a house a month or something like that. But you know, if I could pull myself out further and look and say, you know, how can I scale this more?
Yeah,
You know, how could I be better? How can my business be better?
yeah.
So
I
it's
call
kind
that
of a
the ROI on time. So for like me mowing the lawn, right? If like, why would I do that when I can do something that's worth more? Like, I always ask people, how much is your hour, right? Is your hour worth $10 an hour, or is it worth $20 an hour, or 50, right? It's like people that post on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace spatulas and utensils, like professional photos for $1, right? For $1. I'm like, why are you spending so much time for $1? It doesn't make sense. And it's like,
Marketing.
I'm like, what's going on here? But like you said, like you're gonna start looking at yourself in a third person point of view and be like, okay, that job is really easy. I could just have someone do that for me. Mowing lawns, boom, I got Fred doing that. I need someone to take my kids to school. Okay, I got Timmy. He can go take my kids to school or whatever. And I need a cleaner in my Airbnbs. Okay, instead of me cleaning it, I get someone else to do it. Wow, I saved us so much time. How can I make my business scale even further? I kind of learned that from the E-Myth, right? There's a lot of things you can get out of that. Like a lot of people, they put on, yeah, you put on all the hats at first, but once you get it rolling and it's working, okay, money's going in your pocket. Why not? You got to be, a lot of people, they forget that they're the entrepreneur, right? So as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to grow your business, and they kind of stop there. I kind of say my uncle's one of those. He ironically owns a convenience store. Uh, so I'm like, dude, why? This is not a business, man. You're here 24/7. You're not growing it. He's like, well, it is a business. I own it. I'm like, yes, but you're working for yourself, which is the worst person to work for, because not only are you managing, you're also make sure that you're like managing, you're doing the job, you're actually trying to see that you're making profit, make sure you're also the security guard. So you're doing a bunch of stuff, and you're being a lawyer too, because now you're interacting with police or whatever, whenever bad situations happen. So it's like you're doing so many things. You're just working for the worst person. That's yourself. You should not ever work yourself. You should actually control yourself. Like you said, control your ship, control everything. And you'll see that, man, if I could just be the entrepreneur in this scenario, I could hire out people afterwards, have contractors come and do this. If it's like, I see it as if it can kill as many birds with one stone. Like if I'm already going to be at my Airbnb place, I need a place to stay, but it needs a new TV. I also got to do the drywall there. Well, my return on investment on that, especially with time, if I do it, I save money on it and I do everything because I'm going to be there for a while. So I say play smart with it too, but don't go out and take photos of utensils and post them on Facebook for $1, because that's not, you're not making any money. There's no return on investment on that. It sucks. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, it is. And if you could start all over, what would you have done differently? Let's say I send you all the way back to whenever you're 18. You're like, oh fuck, you got the same mindset and everything, but you're 18 again. What would you done differently?
Yeah, you know, let me think about that. I mean, honestly, I live life. I honestly don't regret anything I've
Yeah.
done. No regrets. Um, but if I were to do it all over again with the knowledge I have now, I would have just started in real estate earlier.
Yeah.
Um, just because of like the time and the compound effect with real estate. And like, if I was able to get in when I was 18, which I'm 28 now, that would have been 10 years ago. Like, think of how long I could have cash flowed. Think of how much that property could have appreciated, and how, probably how much that principals have been paid down already. So if I would have just bought the same property 10 years ago,
Yeah.
like, it's just huge. Like, the time is the biggest like element to it. Is like, that's how you create your money, is just with time. Like, it
Yeah.
compounds. So yeah, man, if I just had that time back just to start earlier, that's what I would have done. Which is why I love when young guys like you or me or whatever, they're all about real estate. Because man, if you're to buy a bunch of real estate when you're in your 20s and it's paid off in into 30-year mortgages, and if you pay them all up by the time you're 50, like, holy cow, you're going to be
Yeah.
chilling. So or you can just keep refinancing them, like use them as a little savings account and keep pulling that equity out in cash, like boom, 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 all throughout the whole year. So yeah, I guess the long-winded answer, but I would have just started earlier simply because of the time effect of real estate.
Yeah. Hey, smart answer. Smart answer. I love it. And now we can move on to the ending questions here. So if you can go back in time and tell your younger self something, well, I guess it's basically get into real estate. So that answers that one.
Yeah.
Actually, what question would you ask your future self, like right now, 20 years from now?
Ooh, 20 years from now,
Yeah.
I would just ask myself, like, did you make your dreams come true? I want to know, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, were you able to make the impossible happen, make that reality happen? Like, you know, starting out, I would have never guessed that I would be a millionaire or something like that, or a multi-millionaire. And so I just want to know, like, did you make your like dreams become a reality?
Yeah. And the reason why I say this is because 20 years from now, I'm gonna send you this podcast exactly. And be like, hey, listen to your 20-year-old podcast. See if you can answer your own. And
Hopefully I'm sitting in my waterfront little house on my
yeah,
boat.
drinking your margarita and it'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think the secret sauce is into being successful?
Secret sauce to being successful.
Yeah.
Hmm. I would probably have to say the secret sauce to being successful is just having full, at least for me, I think it's full accountability of everything that happens.
Yeah.
Um, whether, you fail, succeed, you got to own that. You can't blame anybody else if you fail. You can't point fingers if a team member loses a deal. At the end of the day, and that kind of goes back to, I don't know if you ever listened to like Jocko
Yeah.
Willink,
Jocko
that
Willink. Yeah.
so he talks about that ultimate accountability,
Ownership.
like, yeah, ownership. Like, you got to own it, dude. Like, if you own your business, if you own your life, like, it's gonna go the way you want, I think. So
Yeah.
I think just having that ultimate accountability, ultimate ownership of whatever you're doing, I think that's how you're gonna make it to the promised land.
Nice. Nice. Love that. And is there a quote that you live by?
A quote,
Yes.
you know, I don't think there's a quote I necessarily live by, but there's one quote my dad used to tell me when I was a student or a kid. He would always just tell me, like, he would say, be a warrior. He said, you need to be a warrior. He says, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're on the field, whether you're on the wrestling mat, you need to be a warrior. And I think that's the kind of mindset that I like to program into my own mind, is like, you need to have a warrior mindset. Like, you got to attack everything that you want, like whether you're studying for a test, whatever, or you're doing a big deal,
Yeah.
or you're playing the game of your life on that field. Like, you've got to do it 100%. You got to be a warrior. So
Yeah.
that's something my dad used to say when I was a kid. I don't really have a quote myself, but I'll just take my dad's.
Yeah. Jaden here asks, Jaden, you can ask this question if you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, so like with all your properties and stuff and all the money, your revenue and stuff that's coming in, what's one thing that keeps you from greed?
Yeah. And so actually, funny thing is, like, when I was like broke, that's when I had more like, man, if I had money, I would buy, Beamer, or start cashing out on some nice stuff. But then once you have money, you're like, man, I don't want those things anymore. So I feel like your mindset changes. Like, that's
Yeah.
not what's important anymore. Because I don't need to look rich when I can be rich. So in everything that I've made, I've reinvested into my own portfolio or into myself, and that's helped me scale even more.
Mhm.
So it's like, you can buy a handful of properties or start a small business, but if you start pulling all those funds back out and just start buying stuff that's not going to help you grow, like,
Yeah.
it's not, to me, it's not serving me a purpose. Like, I can wear some Gucci, Prada, or whatever,
Yeah.
but that's not going to help me be a better version of me at the end of the day. So now, if I do spend money, I think what's important mostly to me is, like I said before, is family. So I'll spend money on an experience or something for the family, or a vacation, because that's now what's important to me. But before, you're young, you want to flex, you want
Yeah.
to drive that foreign, you want to rock some nice threads. So, but I think my priorities changed a
Yeah.
ton, and so now, I just want to grow, be a better person, and grow my business. So that's where my funds go.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with you, Taylor, because I always say, like, people that buy, like, let's say they're in the hood, right? And they're buying these Gucci belts, these Gucci bags and these nice like Nike shoes. They want the symbol of being rich, not actually being rich. But you, on the other hand, you're like, hey, I kind of want to be rich, but you don't want to really like not show it off. You're like, hey, I got here, right? Everyone wants to have that feeling, but a lot of people they take that symbol or they can become that symbol. You know what I mean? So that's how I see it. And usually for greed, it's you'll figure out that once you're like, it's like the whole I forgot what it's called, but it's basically the whole pilot thing, right? If your airplane is crashing, what do? You put on your own mask first before you help somebody else, right? Before you help the kid. So in life, you're going to see that. Let me help myself get out of the waters first. Let me build my own empire so that one day I can help other people grow their empire. So in the grand scheme of things, I Taylor, like you're probably one of those people that are helping out people. Like, hey, let me give my knowledge to people. Let me spend my time on this podcast telling people like, hey, this is how I did it. You can do it too. Just do this, or this is my beginnings. Anybody can do it if they just put in the work, have this type of mindset. Like that's giving back to society in a way where they know it's a possibility, right? This soldier from like, humble beginnings, right? Comes in and becomes almost a multimillionaire, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's that simple. And then now they're helping out people. And what books would you recommend for certain situations or parts of your life, or courses too? And because since you're like all knowledge based, what are some good things that helped you out the most?
Yeah. So I'll give you 2 book recommendations.
All right.
But a business one and a mindset one. Well, the other book is literally called Mindset by Carol Dweck or something like that. But it's like this. She's like a professor at Stanford, and she breaks down like the psychology of a growth mindset. And the whole book is literally comparing people that have a fixed versus a growth mindset and how they handle different situations, whether that be business, relationships, anything in life that they encounter, like maybe like a bad circumstance. And so studies, and it's all like backed by research and stuff, but studies show that people with a fixed mindset are just obviously are a lot more successful. And people that have that fixed mindset, which is what I used to have, that fixed mindset, like, oh, this happened to me because of blaming somebody else or anybody but yourself. And people that have growth mindset, they look at failure as like failing forward. They're going to learn from it and they want to be better. So I would definitely recommend checking out that mindset book because that helped me develop the mindset that I want as well. The other one I would recommend is a book called Traction. And I think that might be Gino Wickman. And he also wrote another one called Rocket Fuel.
Mm-hmm.
But that's helped me out a lot recently as I try to build my own business. Because, when I was starting out, I was just bootstrapping everything. But now that I'm actually trying to establish a legitimate business with systems in place, with, you want to have the right system with the right people, and then manage it the right way. So this book is a pretty good like literally like play-by-play, going to show you like how to do that. So definitely check out Traction as well. That's a good business one.
Nice. I love it. And second to last question here is there anything that you would like to tell your parents?
My parents, yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I love my mom and dad. They I think as a kid you don't really get the opportunity to express your gratitude and show them how thankful you are, but as you get older and you get wiser, you realize like, man, like, thank you, like, for putting food on the table, for like providing me shelter, for giving me a good upbringing, like everything. I'm just so grateful for what they provided me. Like I never had to worry about anything because they took care of me. So just I'm super thankful for them.
Yeah. You have that voice. Oh, sorry, I'm getting sick. So you have that voice where it's like it's so soothing that it makes you want to cry. So, so I can see why people could sell you a bunch of stuff. So
yeah.
And finally, how can people reach out to you, and
Yeah.
what value can they give back to you?
So I'm super active on Instagram mostly. So it's just my name, Taylor Wing _. And so probably the best value is just to check me out, give me a follow, interact with my platform, because I'm trying to build it up so I can put my name out there. And I want to down the road, create more education content. I mean, I'm trying to create more stuff. I don't have the time. Time's the biggest enemy right now for me. But I'm trying to create more content, put it out there. Like you said, I'm trying to give back now. I mean, I'm still growing, as I'm still learning every day too, but I
Yeah.
want everyone to grow. I want everyone to learn with me. So if
Yeah.
I can provide value to those followers, that community, like, I'm going to do that. So check me out there. That's what I'd love to connect with more of you.
Nice. And again, thank you, Taylor, for coming on here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun, man.